All right, welcome to another episode of the White Mountain Endurance Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Karen, and I'm joined by two special guests today, James Leitner and Nick Higgins, who are both, I'd say, part of the larger New England endurance community. And yeah, we have, some pretty interesting things to talk about. Um, Coming next month, January 16th, both James and Nick will be taking on what they're naming the Lincoln 100 in Lincoln, New Hampshire. And yeah, running 100 miles in the middle of winter in New Hampshire is no easy feat. So yeah, we're going to dive in today a little bit into just the story behind this challenge and some of the inspirational people that are part of that. Yeah, James, I don't know if you want to kick us off with just yeah, a little bit more about yourself, and also we're going to dive into the organization that you founded, Mission Clean Water. But yeah, I'll give it over to you, and then we'll dive in.
Definitely, definitely. Well, so first off, appreciate this opportunity and to meet more of your team and have this conversation. So yeah, my name is James Leitner. I founded the nonprofit organization Mission Clean Water as a way of trying to create longer lasting clean water projects because so many fail within their first few years of implementation. And as I began diving more into this clean water world, learning that women and children walk so far to get clean water for their families, it was kind of like a natural transition towards like how do I showcase their walks while completing marathons, carrying water, ultra marathons, and so on. Became kind of like a natural transition towards purposeful fundraising. And so, have used this as a way of sharing people's stories, completing wonderful challenges. And after completing a marathon a month for a year, carrying 45 pounds of water, just naturally transitioned into being like, hey, I actually really enjoy going the long distances. Let's see where this can take me.
And had you been an endurance athlete and runner for, most of your life or a while before this project began, or how did those two meet?
So actually, no. Originally, like high school and younger, was very into sports, soccer, golf, basketball, the whole nine yards. So I think that gave me like a good base to like start, but still had to like figure out on my own how to long distance run, I guess you can say.
Hmm.
Um, at the time, I loved hiking, camping, comfortable like being out for long periods of time, and just after college, I moved to West Virginia, a town of like 300 people, beautiful state, where my ability to fundraise kind of really dropped. I just had to rely on like social media and digital outreach. And so naturally thought to myself, well, marathons would be a good showcase and just signed up for a marathon. The New Jersey Marathon had 4 months to figure it out, and the rest was pretty much history since then.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Going, yeah, right off the deep end into
Yeah, pretty
into
pretty
it.
much. There's no other way of doing it sometimes.
Totally, I know. Well, yeah, one of the, I guess the maybe sad, unfortunate things that's bringing the three of us together today is, yeah, a man named Chris Roma who both, yeah, had a huge impact on your lives. For those, listening who are part of the White Mountain Endurance community, they might know Chris's name, but yeah, he tragically passed away this past January in the Whites. Maybe Nick, you can touch on his story a little bit more, and yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Like James said, thank you very much for having us on this platform and giving us a chance to spread awareness about a cause that was very near and dear to Chris, as it is to obviously both me and James too. But yeah, Chris was my like main hiking and climbing partner up here in the Whites. And I moved up here in September of 2021 from Boston, and had already been involved in the kind of endurance and hiking community up here, but really dived headfirst when I met Chris at the ski shop that we both worked at in Lincoln. And yeah, we became fast and hard friends. And there's not too many people that want to keep pace with you on a 30, 40 mile day in the whites. So you learn who you like to hike with pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And Chris was there every step that I've been up here in the whites. And yeah, as you said, he tragically passed away in January, trying to do a single day Pemi Loop on the 16th, as part of a larger NEU 8 winter goal.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah. So now my kind of mission going forward is to one, spread awareness about hiking safety up in the White Mountains and beyond, and to try to keep Chris's flame, so to speak, alive and burning brightly. And Mission Clean Water was definitely one of the driving forces behind Chris's determination, which was very apparent right off the bat when you met the guy. And Mission Clean Water was a big part of that, and how he felt that he could give forward to a better community locally and globally. So I'm super stoked to be following in his footsteps.
Yeah, and James, you met Chris through hiking, right? Or you were headed across the country. He was partway through a through hike. But yeah, do you want to touch on that a bit?
Definitely. So I first met Chris, this was back in 2017. So I was doing a fundraiser for Mission Clean Water, hiking from New Jersey to California, so cross country. And when I reached, I forget the town, but when I reached Colorado, spent like a bunch of 0 days just resting in Colorado. And just so happens to where I was resting was right along the CDT, the Continental Divide Trail. And there was one day I saw two hikers just getting pummeled in the rain on the road as well. So I was like, all right, well, based off how tan they are and the amount of gear that they have, they're probably on the CDT. And so I had a car at the moment for taking the 0 days. Stop by, pick them up. I was like, hey, like you guys are off trail. You heading anywhere? Do you want any help? I'm like, yeah, we would love a ride to the like local hotel where we're staying at that helps out CDT hikers. And one of those people ended up being Christopher Roma. And so pretty much from like that moment on and exchanging information, we stayed in close contact ever since. This was when he already accomplished the Pacific Crest Trail. And so the CDT was next for him. And so we just stayed in close contact. You know, he was getting pummeled in the ring, but couldn't be happier. And his, positive energy just
Yeah.
vibrated and went everywhere. And so we just stayed in close contact ever since. He did want to complete his Triple Crown. So he had the Appalachian Trail next after the CDT. So he did do that as like a fundraiser for Mission Clean Water and dedicating a Triple Crown towards it. And we just continued working together towards ways we can help each other. And he was really, pivotal in assisting us in our very early days and funding his own clean water project that's had monumental results. So, even though I live in New Jersey and he was in New Hampshire, and definitely unprecedented in 20 and 30-year-olds, just stayed in close contact ever since. I only saw him a few times after that, but, each conversation was still very long, very wonderful, and great to hear all the updates between each other.
Yeah, I think that's something really special about the endurance world is I feel like these connections with people on a run or a hike or a trail where you might be only cross paths for like, sometimes even a few like mere moments, but like the
Yeah.
friendships that you can form in that time are really incredible.
Of
Like
course, yeah.
yeah, it's just always surprises me the people I've met and, continue to play such a big role in my life. And I'm like, wow, I just, met this person at the Galehead Hut on Pemi or
Yeah.
like, I've
Yeah.
like barely even shared that much like physical time with them, but like they
Yeah.
made such an impact in
Oh,
that
definitely.
time. And yeah, it sounds like Chris is that kind of person. And
Mhm.
I read that he raised like upwards of $30,000 for Mission Clean Water through his
Yeah.
his Triple Crown. I'd love for you to like share a little bit more about sort of the direct impact of that money and where it goes, and yeah, just how it's used. I think that would be interesting for people to hear.
No, of course. So Chris did help raise about $30,000 directly and indirectly. So part of it was from his Triple Crown, his Appalachian Trail hike, as well as being a catalyst for Mission Clean Water to reach out to other through hikers who did their first through hike, had their purpose for why, and now are trying to find deeper meaning to continue going forward. And so he really helped us connect us to a much larger community, as well as I did my own endurance challenges. He also did his as well. I did my own little personal Mount Everest challenge, hiking or running 29,029 feet, the height of Mount Everest, and had like a good place to do it. Chris wanted to do it too and found like a 2-story parking garage and just did it on the stairs
Wow.
nonstop, which is even I was disgusted by it in a good way. Yeah. So Chris was extremely pivotal in fundraising Mission Clean Water's first clean water project, which is over in Uganda. It was originally created to benefit two specific communities and one school as like a solar distribution project. So, we find water, store it, and use lines to send it throughout the entire community. We were able from that project to find one of the biggest water tables within that region. So the water underground was some of the biggest. And since the completion in 2018, 2019, that project has since been expanded on 3 separate occasions. So now it's reaching a total of 6 communities and another school, as well as a marketplace, which is now providing year-round clean water access. People have water for hydration, for hygiene purposes. There's so much water, people are using it for irrigation. For all these 5 communities, the walk to collect water has been reduced from 3 hours to 15 minutes. And so that extra time to do, things at home, work opportunities. Women report that because they aren't away from home so long, the rate of domestic violence has also dropped, as well as because they have an extra growing season from all this water. A brand new marketplace has opened up within this community. So people drive a half hour during this time of the year, the dry season, because they just have a surplus of crops to sell. So it's, this project has, help these communities just flourish and reach a whole new stage of community and economic development, which has gone so far past just clean water access.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty incredible. Just the
Yeah.
how yeah, just the trickle down effect of
Oh,
those
yeah.
projects. How often do you go over to where these projects are taking place? Do you spend a lot of time like over there, or
Not as much as I would like to, besides this past summer. So it was all a bit different because pre-COVID, I guess you can
yeah?
say, we were still like establishing our team over in Uganda, vetting and training and all that. So I was over there, I want to say like once every 4 months. So pretty frequently. COVID obviously changed a few things, but the one good part was that just before we went through that period, we had just hired our full-time team, a great structure. And so since then, I've been back pretty much once a year or so. This most recent summer, I was pretty much there the entire summer. So I think with the upcoming years, it'll be a little bit more frequent, 2, 3 times a year. But we have that structure and that whole team there really embedded in local culture. So, myself going isn't like a consistent necessity besides, good practices.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, well, yeah, maybe we dive into Lincoln 100. I know we're less than a month out. I'm sure that maybe you guys are feeling a little nerves at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to hear, a bit about just I think Chris was the creator of the this initial Lincoln 100. Is that right? Um,
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, just Nick, if you want to share a little more about that, that would be great.
Yeah, I believe it was back in 2018 when Chris had finished his Continental Divide through hike. He was kind of sitting back home, and winter was in full swing in the whites, and I think he just needed something to kind of light a fire under his ass, so to speak.
Yeah.
And yeah, just kind of raw dogged this, I think, with very little training. And he ended up getting 34 miles in before I think his feet gave out on him. I don't think he had very prepared much or gave himself many changes of layers. I think he was really just trying to go after it. But yeah, so it's a 3.2 mile loop in Lincoln and North Woodstock, New Hampshire, all on pavement. So it's 31 laps around this loop, and it ends up being about 2,200 feet of elevation gain. My training this time around, I ran it in August, this past summer, just as a memorial and a dedication event, but also kind of just as a dry run, so to speak, for
100
this
mile dry
for
run.
the for
I
the
like it.
for the real effort. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, besides hiking and big days on trail, I've never ran a half marathon before I did training.
Wow.
Still haven't officially ran like a full marathon. Um, but yeah, did 100 to crank out the first one.
Wow. And I
That's
guess it didn't scare
amazing.
you away. You're back for more. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, it took one comment on my post on Instagram from James here, saying hit me up for round two when I had completed the
Yeah,
first one,
yeah.
and I said, god damn, I guess we're going after this again.
There's always
Hey, at
there's
least,
always someone that just pushes the line a little bit
Yeah,
extra.
which is totally fine. That's what we're here for, right?
Yeah,
yeah. And now
exactly.
you have company, so that helps for sure a lot.
Exactly.
Nick,
Yes,
were you
yes.
joined by friends and or family for that August edition of it, or was it a more
Yeah,
solo
yeah, I
endeavor?
had it was definitely more solo, but I had an awesome crew that was manning an aid station for me. I had a good friend, Nick Santos, come out and run some laps with me to finish it off. And he's a well-known photographer up here in the Whites. Um, and yeah, I had a few other locals and stuff come and do laps. Probably the most meaningful but also most frustrating lap of the day was getting to push Chris's son Solomon in his stroller, who is 3 years old now.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, him and his older sister. But yeah, he was a lot to handle when I was, x amount of miles and hours into an
Yeah.
ultra. But I think that was just Chris's way of saying, "Hey, dude, we're here. This isn't gonna be easy. You better toughen up."
Yeah. That's awesome.
Um,
Wow.
so yeah, there was a lot of meaningful support behind it.
And
But
and
I'm
how
I'm
long did it
really
end up taking you to complete it in back in August?
the goal was 24. I ended up doing 32.
Okay.
32:08 was the total. And when like the GPS kind of files broke down, it was about 26 hours moving. Um,
Okay.
Wow.
and definitely a lot of time spent in the aid station. Um,
Yeah.
gonna try to clean that up on round two a little bit.
That's
Um,
fair. I feel like, especially with a short loop, it's easy to get stuck in the aid station a
Yeah.
little more often.
yeah,
But
yeah. I think the cold weather might be conducive to short stops this time around versus getting to kick my feet up and take my shoes off,
yeah.
like I was in
So
August.
is the goal sub 24 for January, or do you have a yeah
Yep.
goal in mind yet? Sub 24.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah, sub 24. I think that'll be doable for us. Yeah,
That's about
yeah,
like a
just
loop and a quarter per hour, right? Four
Comes
point
out to,
one
yeah,
six or something like that.
4.16.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It
Nice.
sounds like you've done the math breakdown a few times yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been there. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, part of why I wanted to have both you and James on the pod was to, open. I know you guys were looking for support out there, and yeah, I know how much support helps in an endeavor like this. So. Yeah, I wanted to just open it up to those listening and those in the White Mountain
Definitely.
community to join in, and whether that's running a lap, running several laps, helping out to crew, helping out to cheer, giving you
Mhm.
a friendly honk from their car. Yeah, it sounds like the company would be appreciated, but yeah, maybe we can dive into how people can support you. So January 16th, what day of the week is that? That's a, a
It's a
third
Thursday.
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 Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And you're starting in the morning or in the evening, or
I think we agreed on 3:30 p.m., Nick, right?
okay,
Yeah, yeah. I think 3:30 p.m.
You get the
Get
night first.
Yeah,
nice.
try to finish it out in the daylight. Although this came around to bite me last time. I started like half an hour before sunset in August, and was the goal was 24 hours, and ended up going another 8 hours into the second nighttime, and
Yeah.
finishing in the early hours of the morning. So, but yeah, if as long as we keep to our 24-hour goal, we should be finishing in daylight.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You're kind of like chasing the sun as it comes
Pretty much.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Push you hard
um,
at the very end. Yeah.
yeah.
and James, are you planning also on a sub 24 hour? Will you be sticking together, or what are your intentions?
I feel like there'll be times where like Nick and I do like a mix of things. We'll definitely, get a lot of laps in
Yeah.
together. Um, this should be also quite interesting too. And you definitely do see this with like the whole FKT world and everything. Nick is coming from an extremely, strong and educated, hiking and elevation background. So I'm just now on like the running side of things. So we will see kind of two different strategies, which I'm very excited to see. But sub 24 is definitely the goal. I've done 20 hours before once. So, we'll just see how things move and stay healthy. The one things I'm nervous about is the weather because I'm in New Jersey, and while
Yeah.
we are experiencing our teen and 20 digit weather, obviously no New Hampshire is it's completely different environment and beast. So something I've been weary of and just trying to learn the layering strategies and everything now. So yeah, I mean, in the end, just stay healthy and if as an example something happens where I, have to sit down for much longer than I thought, and the 24-hour mark does hit, we're still going until we
Yeah.
finish. Yeah.
Get it
Absolutely.
done. Yeah.
Yeah,
Have
definitely.
you looked at like historical weather, data for that day? Yeah. What are things looking
It's so
like?
hard. Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, like I mean, Nick obviously knows much better than myself, but I think once the second Nick texted me, I was immediately looking at Lincoln, New Hampshire weather to kind of get like a general window. In the end, it's winter in New Hampshire. It could be 30
Pretty
degrees outside as
unpredictable.
the
Yeah.
high, or it could be in the negatives at night. So you just never know. But Nick obviously knows much better than I do.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I am hoping that the weather is not kind of repetitive from last year. Um, this is the 1 year anniversary of Chris going out for his Pemi Loop.
Yeah.
So those were pretty gnarly conditions out there last year on this day. And I think
Mhm.
historically, kind of trending. We've been getting less and less of a kind of severe winter start in December, and a lot more green Christmases. And winter
Yeah.
really rolls into the whites that first and second week of January, I think nowadays. Um, Obviously there was a hiker rescued off of Mount Luff or Franconia Ridge in Little Haystack yesterday. So winter is
Yeah, I
here.
saw that.
Winter
Yeah.
is here in the whites. I'm feeling it. I'm already running in the negative wind chill once or twice a day. Um, so we'll see if that leads to any home field advantage,
Yeah.
so to speak. But yeah. Um, no, I'm really hoping for a good weather window. But we don't know what we're gonna get given the
Yeah,
second week of January. Um,
Can I ask both of you guys a question actually? So,
sure.
all right, it's gonna be cold. You both have experiences in New Hampshire. I have the lower body extremity strategy well. I have the like chest strategy well for staying warm, but it's the face. So I have like a bunch of like neck gaiters that I can put over. Should I just be buying a full head gaiter? Do I need like good goggles for the eyes and the wind? I have like 5 hats I can change out. What do you suggest for shoulders and above?
Nick, I'll
I
let
guess
you.
I'll
Yeah.
kick this off. Personally, in like the worst of the worst conditions, I would say like a full balaclava with a windproof barrier is going to be
Okay.
your biggest friend. And maybe even
Okay.
having one or two of those to change out into.
Yeah.
Just given how we're going to be sweating out there in the cold.
Sure.
Um, Goggles for sure. Some clear goggles, especially for
Yeah.
nighttime if it's going to be low
Yeah.
visibility.
Hmm.
But yeah, layers is going to be the key to this. And
Yeah.
I think I got a little bit of a head start, but don't shave until January 16th.
I was actually thinking about that yesterday. I was like, oh, I did shave last week. I should just let it go. Like,
Yeah.
it's so funny.
It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I
I
don't know, it's a
find
little
like
bit of a
the
catch-22 because my beard
Yeah.
freezes up every time I go running,
yeah.
especially at faster paces if I'm
Yeah.
doing a little bit of speed work or something,
Mhm.
and sweating hard. I definitely feel the ice beard coming on pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I
Definitely.
don't know. Maybe it's not a benefit. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, that's why I struggle with like the moisture that you produce, from
Mhm.
breathing with the buffs because they just turn into
Yeah. They
ice.
freeze. Yeah.
So like having lots of those, or like the balaclava where it's like if it's a stiffer one where it doesn't, press up right on your skin and has a little bit of air in between. I find those work
Mhm.
really well especially if there's
Okay.
like precipitation or anything like that.
Yeah.
Just so it's not like right on your skin, but sort of like has a, you know, still creates the layer of warmth and allows the
Definitely.
moisture to escape too. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like Nick said, many layers, and it's nice that you have a short loop where you're able to go
Yeah.
back and switch things out as needed. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, I know your neighbors next door. You've got a few outdoor gear equipment places right in town in case you run out of any options
That's true.
partway through. So
That's
I
true.
see your hat, Nick. Is that a version hat or the?
It
I think
is.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I work over at Bergen and Lincoln.
Nice. Awesome.
And yeah, they're a great company to work for. They do a lot of community involvement stuff.
Yeah.
They actually just donated, I believe, $1,000 to the Lincoln
Mhm.
100 Mission Clean Water Fund. So
Wow,
huge,
that's
huge,
awesome.
huge thank you to them. And
Huge. Yeah.
yeah, if there's any other businesses in the whites that are listening or hearing this podcast when it comes out, this is a really great cause to step up to the plate and hopefully spend some of those end of year dollars before you lose them. Um,
Using my loot.
Yeah.
yeah.
um, so to dive, yeah, into like specifics and where exactly is the this loop starting for people who want to? I know we'll share the link online where people can learn more, but where's the sort of home base that you guys will be kicking off from?
Yeah.
It'll be on Connector Road in Lincoln.
Okay,
So it's gonna be in a friend's driveway, and
nice.
yeah, it's right on the course. So anybody that's familiar with Lincoln and kind of the White Mountains, it's gonna be from Clark's down Connector to Main Street, and then down 112 to Route 3, and back up Route 3 to Clark's Trading Post, with
Okay.
our aid station and kind of start and stop point being on Connector Road.
And is that start finish area the best place for people to find you? Like, can people park there if they want, or is there a better spot for that?
Yeah, there's some parking up and down the street, as well as there should be some access to some driveway parking. People are going to be coming and going. But yeah, we're going to be out there for 24 hours, hopefully a little less maybe. And yeah, you'll be able to find us out on the road pretty easily. And yeah, if you're familiar with Lincoln and North Woodstock, especially not on a weekend, it's pretty easy to find some parking up and down the main drags. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I
so
know
yeah, I don't
our
think it'll be a
race
problem.
director,
Mm.
Marilyn Stiles, who's the race director for White Mountain Endurance. We were chatting about it the other day, and I know she's eager to help out and support and come out for you guys. And yeah, I hope others will follow suit. For those not able to be there in person, you there's how can they follow along? Will there be updates? Obviously you guys will be busy running, but yeah, will there be any updates on your progress throughout the day?
Yeah, so I will, once everything does begin on the 16th, I'll be doing what I can to consistently upload to my personal Instagram and
Okay.
Mission Clean Waters, even if it's something quick and short, just so people can kind of see how it's going. Mainly because, my community is mostly over a little bit more down south of y'all in New Jersey, so they got to stay up to date a little bit more remotely. So I'll be kind of keeping that kind of all in taps. Um, as well as to kind of pick on what we talked about before. I can include my email and contacts at the end of this, or if anyone does go to Mission Clean Water's website, where the web page is for this event, I respond to everything directly, and I can send anyone a little like informal race packet of like, here's where it is, location, parking, how you can support, all that fun stuff.
Nice. And what are your
Yeah.
favorite snacks? If someone wants to bring you some
Oh,
food.
goodness. Oh, that's a really good question, actually. Surprisingly enough, what have I been eating a lot recently? Dried fruit is fantastic. M&Ms will absolutely devour. I've recently been loving when I go on long runs, just like like those yogurt covered raisins or things like that, or chocolate
Okay.
covered almonds. Absolutely fantastic. Anything, if you give me any type of bag of chips, I'll just open it, crush it all to bite-sized pieces, and just
Nice.
drink it. So yeah, pretty much anything will get likely immediately devoured. I tend to get most of my calories from like liquids and all those different stuff. So, foods are just good little
Bonus.
simpleness, nothing too crazy. Yeah. Uh, or even just like if you bring me just like a jar of pickles or a whole thing of chicken broth, I'll just down it if I can.
I know you might need some things to keep you warm. I feel like the
Yeah.
the candy could get pretty rock hard
That
if
happened
Yeah.
it's
to me
cold.
once before. Yeah.
So might
Completely
need to
frozen
pre-melt
M&Ms.
it.
Yeah, I
Nick,
got to
how about
figure out.
yourself? What are your go-to fuel sources?
Um, I'm definitely more of a solid food eater while I'm hiking and just out in my day-to-day stuff, but especially for runs and on this first round of the Lincoln 100. It was almost all liquid fuel.
Okay.
So might be playing around with a little bit of that. I've been doing a lot of gels that are high in carbs during this training bracket this time around. So I've been aiming for like between 80 and 110 kind of grams of carbs per hour during most of these training blocks that I've been having, especially long runs.
Yeah.
So I've been really liking the Morton 160 gels and throw back a three of their 320 mixes and 100 milligrams of caffeine an hour in the second half. We should be good to
All
go.
right.
Yeah.
Nice. And you find your stomach like do you generally have a pretty strong stomach or
Yeah. I only had GI issues once during the whole first 100, and it got decently hot.
yeah.
During the daytime in August. But nothing like any of these desert ultras that some of these guys and gals are out there doing. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was actually like a noon hydration tablet or packet, but
Okay.
it had ginger in it, which
Oh,
I didn't think about, which I think might be good this time around, but it's like a warming agent. So I was like
Okay.
maybe a half a mile into my loop, my lap after downing that, and the stomach was not agreeing. Um,
That's
but yeah, that
funny.
was
I feel
that
like a
was
lot of
that was the
people
only
use
mishap.
ginger to like settle the stomach sometimes, but I guess if you're not expecting it, it could be an unpleasant surprise.
Yeah, I'm not
But
sure. Maybe it was something else that was in it too, but I've been blaming the
we'll
ginger.
chalk it up to
But
the ginger. I find like it'll be interesting in the winter because you're both saying you're, fairly reliant on the liquid nutrition and fuel. Like I find like when it's cold, your body's a lot less, you know, drinking is can be a lot harder, just
yeah,
especially if like it's not warm. You're just like you don't think about hydration the same way as you do like in, the warmer summer months. And I
yeah,
feel like yeah, and you think like, oh, I'm not like sweating that much or it's cold, but like if anything, sometimes it's more so just with the amount of layers you have on. And yeah, I feel like it can be deceptive in that way. So I always, yeah, like especially on longer runs, you kind of it's easy to forget in the winter. So I feel
yeah.
like that'll be something just to, that you guys I'm sure will have to keep dialed in and keep reminding yourself.
Yeah, I noticed that this most like previous few long runs over the weekend because like it's finally like regularly below the 30s here, and just going out and going for the runs, during like similar I guess 24-hour events, you usually hit that like forcefully drinking mentality like later after the 12-hour mark, but after 2 hours of being out of there, I was like, I don't feel thirsty, but I know I'm thirsty and I need to drink something. And once you do, you're like, thank goodness I did. But I noticed that like, oh, I'm going to have to really like be on point for hydration, calories, and carbs and all that stuff. So I was like, oh, interesting, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that especially as the day and night gets long, I feel like
Yeah.
the the mental math gets a little trickier too, and it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
easier to forget
It's
things.
fuzzy.
So I feel like, I know some people who just set like a timer or whatever just to make sure they stay on top of everything, and that can be helpful. But
I have to do that. Yeah.
yeah, or you'll have Nick reminding you. But
Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah. Before we wrap up, I also went exploring the Mission Clean Water website. And you had mentioned, James, you help organize some of your own races
Mhm.
in the is it New Jersey area that most of
Yeah.
those are held, or
Yeah.
um, yeah, it would be great if you could introduce listeners to some of what you got going on down there, since I know people in the Northeast are always up for traveling. But
Of
yeah, if you
course.
want to share some of those events that you have going on, that'd be awesome.
No, definitely. It's nice, I guess, kind of directing races in New Jersey because so many of the RDs are very, supportive of each other. But, every year I have done some sort of like endurance challenge to help fundraise for clean water efforts. So I was like, all right, well, let me take this energy and, create events for my friends to also do that are a mix of like adventures as well as, more traditional races. So we are kind of expanding this series. We're going to have three races this year in March, May, and no, sorry, March, July, and December. So a winter one. They're like timed events. So you register to do 3 hours, 6 hours, up to 24 hours, along anywhere from a point 0.8 to 2 mile loop.
Okay.
Just so you, just like this event, you consistently can kind of resupply yourself. In July, or August, the Westfield Ultra. That's one of our bigger races. We've had some wonderful like USA 24-hour team people show up. A great fun
That's
time.
awesome.
And then we've also kind of dived into the Run Adventure series. Well, like there's the Lenape Trail around here, as well as the New Jersey Appalachian Trail. Like our team will fully crew you through the entire thing and help support you the entire way, as doing it for a fundraiser for clean water projects. So that's
Great.
always a ton of fun as well. One of my favorite parts about being in this community is also being able to crew and pace people, get a ton of fun, creating all the maps through Gaia and all the support stations and supply runs and cooking and all that. So it's like a fun way of trying to assist community members to be able to do some of the adventures that might be intimidating by themselves. So here's a way we can do it together. And all the proceeds go towards our clean water projects.
That's great. Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
hope to make it down maybe in
Yeah,
2025.
definitely.
I feel like I've done a lot of ultras around New England, but not haven't really got down to New Jersey or that. I feel like I tend to go up. I'm based out of both Massachusetts and Maine, and usually
Yeah.
it's yeah, I usually don't think to. I always am like, up, go to New Hampshire, go to Vermont.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, it would be great to check those out. Um,
Definitely.
well, thank you both, James and Nick, for coming on, and yeah, I really appreciate how you're helping, keep Chris's spirit alive and sharing, just the impact that he's had on so many lives and continuing to spread that impact. I'm excited to follow along on January 16th. Yeah, I'm hoping you'll get a lot of support both in person and with the fundraiser as well. Yeah, before we close out, James, if you just want to touch one more time on where people can find more information, both online and on social media, that'd be awesome.
Of course, yeah. So, the best ways to stay involved or informed about this whole little Lincoln 100 journey, if you do go to Mission Clean Water's website, missioncleanwater.org, there should be a tab available for the Lincoln 100. That's where you can find all the information about this event. You can directly contact me for any questions, as well as on my personal and Mission Clean Water's Instagram. We'll be posting about it regularly as well. I'm just JH Leitner, which I can share later. But then, if people are kind of looking at like, oh, well, I don't run ultra marathons, I really can't get involved. That's not the case. In the end, if you want to do one lap with us, anyone is welcome. If you want to just come and honk your horn and yell things at us, that's also extremely welcome. And in events like these that are so emotionally, mentally, and physically draining, any type of support goes an extremely, long way. So we invite anyone to come out in any capacity to come, support us in any way, and we'll greatly appreciate it as well.
Sweet. Well, go get that sub 24, both of you.
Yeah,
And yeah, thank you both for coming on, and thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the White Mountain Endurance Podcast. We will see you next time.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.